The chandelier above the grand dining hall glittered like a crown made of stars. Crystal glasses caught the light, gold cutlery shimmered, and the air was perfumed with the scent of roasted lamb, saffron rice, and quiet tension. It was supposed to be a celebration. Kareem al-Rashid, billionaire investor and philanthropist, had gathered his top executives and foreign partners in his Dubai mansion to seal a monumental merger, one that would link East and West, power and money, heritage and ambition. But beneath the polished laughter and the clinking of glasses, unease floated like smoke. At the far end of the room, Amara Lewis, one of the domestic staff, moved silently between the guests, refilling glasses and replacing plates. Her posture was perfect, her expression calm, but her eyes, dark, observant, alive, missed nothing. She was the only black maid in the household, hired 2 months ago through an agency. She spoke little, worked hard, and drew whispers from the other servants. "She's too quiet," they said. "Too smart for her job. And have you seen the way she looks at him?" But Amara didn't look at anyone. Not really. She just saw Kareem, dressed in a tailored white thobe and gold cufflinks, lean toward the European investor across from him. "Mr. Duval, let me assure you," he said, voice smooth. "In my country, hospitality isn't a gesture. It's an oath." Mr. Duval smiled politely. "That's comforting, Mr. Al-Rashid. Though I must admit, sometimes I wonder how you keep such order. Your staff is so disciplined it's almost military." The comment drew faint laughter from the table. Kareem's smile didn't waver. "Respect is the root of all discipline," he said in English. Then switching to Arabic, as he sometimes did when frustrated, he muttered under his breath, "Except some people only understand the whip." The laughter continued, unaware. But Amara, standing behind him with a tray, froze. She understood every word. Her heart pounded once, twice, and then steadied. She could pretend she hadn't heard. She could stay invisible, as always, but something in her, and her pride, exhaustion, maybe both, wouldn't let her. She spoke softly, clearly in perfect Arabic. "And some people," she said, "forget that the whip cuts both ways." The room fell silent. Forks clinked against plates. Someone coughed. Kareem turned slowly, his eyes narrowing as if he wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. "You speak Arabic?" Amara met his gaze, her voice steady. "Yes, sir. Where did you learn?" "In Morocco and later in Cairo," she said. "My mother taught at a language school for diplomats." A murmur rippled down the table. Kareem's guests looked from him to her, intrigued. The maid who had just spoken to a billionaire like an equal, and in his language. One man chuckled nervously. "Well, that's impressive. Not often the help joins the conversation." Amara's hand tightened on her tray. She wanted to melt into the floor. But Kareem's voice stopped the tension from turning ugly. "Enough," he said softly. His gaze didn't leave her. "What's your name?" "Amara Lewis." "And how long have you worked here, Amara?" 2 months, sir." "And in 2 months you learned to challenge your employer at his own table?" She inhaled slowly. "I didn't mean disrespect, sir. Only that language can wound. Even when it's not meant to." Something flickered in his expression. A shadow of surprise, then perhaps respect. The silence stretched a beat longer before Kareem leaned back and said almost lightly, "Interesting. My father used to say truth sounds different when spoken by the uninvited." He gestured toward the table. "Please continue serving." Her relief was quiet but fragile. The eyes of every guest burned holes in her back as she walked away. Dinner ended early. Kareem's charm never faltered, but the air had changed. His laughter no longer reached his eyes. After the last guest left, the servants moved like ghosts, clearing dishes and sweeping away the evening's remains. Amara was stacking silverware when she heard a low voice behind her. "Walk with me." She turned. Kareem stood at the archway, his expression unreadable. Her hands trembled slightly as she followed him into the courtyard. The desert night was cool, the marble steps glowing under lantern light. A fountain whispered in the center, throwing silver arcs of water into the air. He stopped beside it, folding his hands behind his back. "Do you always correct your employers?" "No, sir." "Then why tonight?" She hesitated. Because the words were wrong. He turned to face her. "You assume I didn't mean them?" She met his gaze, bold, unflinching. I assume you're better than them. For the first time, Kareem's composure cracked. A smile ghosted across his lips. You think you know me? No, sir, she said softly. But I listen. The words hung between them. Not challenge, not apology, but truth. He studied her for a long moment before saying quietly, You risked your job to speak honesty. That's rare, she lowered her gaze. I'd rather lose work than respect myself. He looked at her again, longer this time. Then without another word, he walked away. That night, Amara lay awake in her small servant's quarters. The marble floor still held the echo of her voice. The whisper of the fountain still pulsed in her mind. She'd done something reckless, dangerous. And yet, beneath the fear, a strange calm had settled in her chest. Somehow, the billionaire had heard her, not just her Arabic, but her conviction. The next morning, the house was different. Whispers chased her through the halls. She talked back to him. He didn't fire her. Maybe she's lucky, or cursed. At noon, she was summoned to his office. The room was enormous, walls of glass overlooking the city, a single palm tree framed against the horizon. Kareem sat behind his desk, papers spread before him, his expression unreadable. Close the door, he said. She obeyed. He gestured to a chair. Sit. She hesitated, then did. He studied her in silence for a few seconds before saying, You speak Arabic better than some of my partners. I studied for years, and yet you work here. I needed the job. He leaned back. There are better paying positions for someone with your fluency, her lips curved faintly. Not for someone with my skin. The words struck harder than she meant them to. Kareem's eyes darkened, not with anger, but realization. You've had that answer ready for a long time, haven't you? Amara smiled thinly. It's the truth. Truth doesn't need rehearsal. He was silent again, tapping a pen against his desk. You said something last night about words that wound. Yes, sir. What did you mean? She drew a breath. People like me, we hear everything. Every joke, every whisper. Sometimes silence hurts more than insults. Her honesty disarmed him. For once, the powerful man had no script to hide behind. Finally, he said quietly, You may go. She rose to leave. Amara, he said, stopping her at the door. You were right. She turned, surprised. He smiled faintly. The whip cuts both ways. Her laughter, soft, genuine, filled the room before she caught herself. I'll remember that, sir. That evening, the mansion buzzed again. New guests, new dinner. But the mood was different. When Amara entered to serve, Kareem greeted her in Arabic. Good evening, Amara. You look tired. She blinked, caught off guard. Work does that to people, sir. His eyes warmed. You should rest more. The other servants exchanged puzzled glances. Since when did the master speak to staff at the table? And yet, beneath that polite exchange, something unspoken bloomed. A fragile thread of respect neither could name yet. Later, when the guests had gone, Kareem found himself looking out at the city from his balcony. The lights stretched endlessly, the empire he'd built, the power he'd earned. And yet, what echoed in his mind was not a deal, not applause, but a maid's voice saying, Language can wound, he whispered to the night in Arabic, half to himself. And heal too, perhaps. Inside, Amara cleaned the last table, unaware that her words had already begun to change the man who ruled the mansion. The days that followed the dinner were quieter, but not normal. Something in the rhythm of the mansion had changed. The other staff whispered about it constantly. He talks to her now, one said. In Arabic, another added, almost scandalized. Maybe she bewitched him. Amara ignored them all. She polished the same marble floors, arranged the same silver trays, followed the same routines. But she couldn't silence the new weight in her chest, the one that arrived every time Kareem al-Rashid entered a room. He didn't speak to her often. But when he did, his voice had softened, like the sharp edges had been sanded down. Sometimes their exchanges were brief, ordinary even. How's your mother? He'd ask. Still searching for work, sir. I'll see if my foundation has openings. That's not necessary. Sir, it wasn't a suggestion. And sometimes, the silences between them said more than words could. The library, it was a Tuesday afternoon when he found her in the mansion library. She wasn't supposed to be there. Staff rarely entered unless summoned, but she had come to dust the shelves. The room was Kareem's sanctuary, walls lined with leather-bound volumes, old Arabic poetry, rare manuscripts, and the faint scent of sandalwood. Kareem stepped inside quietly. Unnoticed for a moment, Amara stood by the tall window, dusting a golden-framed Quran. Sunlight spilled across her brown skin, making her look like part of the light itself. He spoke without thinking. Most people fear touching that one. She jumped, turning around. Sir, I didn't mean... It's fine, he said quickly, holding up a hand. You treat it with respect. That's more than I can say for most guests. She relaxed slightly. It's beautiful. The calligraphy? It feels alive, he smiled faintly. You read Arabic too? A little. My mother taught me when I was young. She said language isn't just words, it's a memory. He nodded, quietly impressed. Your mother sounds wise. She is, Amara said softly. Or was, she hesitated. She's been sick lately. The air shifted. His gaze softened. I'm sorry. It's okay, she said quickly, trying to pull back into composure. Work helps. Kareem studied her for a moment longer. Then he stepped closer to one of the shelves and pulled down a small leather book. Here, he said, offering it to her. Amara blinked. What is it? A collection of Arabic proverbs. My father gave it to me when I was your age. I think you'll appreciate it. I can't accept that. It's a book, not a crown, he said gently. Take it. Their fingers brushed as she did. The brief contact sent a quiet jolt through both of them. She lowered her eyes. Thank you, sir. Call me Kareem, he said before realizing what he'd said. Her head snapped up. I couldn't, sir. Then don't say it out loud, he replied, a trace of humor in his voice. Just remember it. The lesson later that week. Kareem returned to the library to find her there again. This time sitting cross-legged on the floor, the book open on her lap, her lips moving silently. He watched her for a moment before speaking. You're reading that like it's scripture. She startled, then smiled. Some of it feels that way. Listen. She read aloud, her Arabic clear and melodic. If speech is silver, then silence is gold. He smiled. My father quoted that to me often. Usually before telling me I talk too much. She grinned softly, emboldened. And do you? He raised a brow. Maybe I just haven't had anyone worth talking to. The words hung between them, heavier than he meant them to. Amara looked down quickly, cheeks warming. Then maybe you just need to listen more, Kareem. The sound of his name on her lips caught him off guard. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then she stood, brushing imaginary dust from her skirt. Forgive me. I shouldn't have said that, but he only smiled quietly. No, you should. Whispers and warnings. By the next week, gossip had spread beyond the servants' quarters. The household manager, Mrs. Qasim, approached Amara one morning, her voice low and firm. Be careful, child. Men like him don't talk to women like us. Not without reason. Amara frowned. He's been kind. That's all, Mrs. Qasim sighed. Kindness is the first step to danger in this house. Remember your place. Amara wanted to protest, but part of her knew the older woman was right. In this world, kindness had consequences. Still, every time she saw Kareem, the walls she built inside her seemed to soften. The storm it was during a charity gala that everything nearly broke. The mansion brimmed with guests, politicians, dignitaries, old friends of Kareem's from across the Middle East and Europe. Amara worked behind the scenes, managing trays and drinks, trying not to draw attention. But attention found her anyway. A guest, a portly man with diamond cufflinks, cornered her near the terrace. His breath smelled of wine and arrogance. You're the one who speaks Arabic, yes? He said, his words slurred. Impressive. For a maid. Amara tried to step back. Please, sir, I'm working, he chuckled. I like a woman with a sharp tongue. Say something for me. Something exotic. Before she could move away, Kareem's voice cut through the noise like a blade. She said no. The guest froze. So did everyone nearby. Kareem stepped forward, his expression cold, dangerous. Apologize. Come now, Kareem, now. The man muttered a half-hearted apology and stumbled off. The crowd pretended not to stare. Kareem turned to Amara. Are you all right? She nodded, shaken. You shouldn't have done that. I should have done it sooner. Her breath caught. People will talk. Let them. He said simply. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting second, the noise of the party faded away. The rooftop. After the gala, Amara escaped to the rooftop terrace to breathe. The city stretched out below like a field of stars. She didn't hear Kareem until he spoke behind her. "You shouldn't be up here alone." She turned, smiling faintly. "You found me anyway." He stepped beside her, looking out at the skyline. "I wanted to make sure you were safe." "I'm fine," she said. "You already rescued me once tonight." He glanced at her. "That wasn't rescue. That was justice." She looked away, voice soft. "Justice looks different when you're the one without power." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You think I don't understand power? I think you've never had to live without it." Her words hit hard, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he nodded slowly. "You're right." The wind rustled her braids. Somewhere below, traffic hummed faintly. Finally, he said, "Amara, you're not like anyone I've met." She smiled sadly. "Because I remind you of the world you try to forget." He turned to face her fully. "Because you speak to me like I'm human." Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, the city lights faded into nothing. Then Amara took a step back. "You shouldn't be here, sir." "Maybe not," he said. "But I am." That night, when she returned to her small room, she found a note slipped under her door. No signature, just a single line written in Arabic. "The world listens differently when you speak." She knew who it was from, and she knew nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The morning after the gala, the mansion felt heavier than usual. The air seemed to carry whispers, half-truths, speculation, and judgment. The staff barely looked at Amara. When they did, their eyes said what their mouths didn't. "You crossed a line," she ignored it. Though her hands trembled as she polished silver trays, every movement was careful, controlled, the rhythm of a woman trying to hold her dignity together. But dignity doesn't quiet rumors. By afternoon, the housekeeper, Mrs. Qasim, appeared at the door of the servants' quarters. "Mr. Al-Rashid wants to see you now." Amara wiped her hands and followed. Kareem's office was filled with sunlight. He stood by the window, phone in hand, speaking in clipped Arabic. "I said no interviews. This is private." "Yes, handle it quietly." He ended the call and turned to her. His expression was tired, but not angry. "They're writing about you," he said. Her stomach sank. "Who?" "The tabloids. They think there's something between us." She looked away. "Isn't there?" He blinked, surprised. Amara's voice was steady but soft. "They're not wrong to notice what's true, sir. But truth and reputation don't live in the same world." He sighed. "Amara, I didn't mean for this to happen. I only wanted to protect you." "I didn't ask for protection," she said gently. "I asked for respect." That silenced him. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "You think this is easy for me? A man like me standing against his own world?" She faced him again, her eyes burning. "You think it's easy for me to survive in a world that decides my worth before I speak?" The words hung heavy between them, truth colliding with power. He stepped closer, his voice quiet now. "You've changed everything, Amara. You make me see things I didn't before." She swallowed hard. "And what do you see now?" Kareem hesitated, then said it almost in a whisper. "You." That night, Amara received a phone call that shattered the fragile calm she'd built. Her mother had collapsed. She rushed to the hospital, her uniform still on, hands shaking as she held the steering wheel. When she arrived, the doctor spoke softly, too softly. "She's stable now, but she'll need surgery soon." "It's expensive." Amara nodded numbly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'll find the money." After the doctor left, she sat beside her mother's bed. The older woman's eyes fluttered open. "Amara," she whispered. "You look tired." Amara smiled faintly. "You always say that, because it's always true." Her mother reached for her hand. "You're working too hard, my child. There are worlds that don't see women like you. Don't let them crush your spirit," Amara swallowed. "I met someone who sees me." Her mother smiled weakly. "Then he must be rare." Amara laughed through tears. "He's impossible." Impossible is just a harder road to truth. 2 days later, Kareem appeared at the hospital unannounced. He wore no suit, no entourage, just a simple shirt and concern etched on his face. "Your supervisor told me where to find you," he said quietly. Amara stood. "You shouldn't be here, I know. But I wanted to help. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check large enough to cover the surgery, and more. She froze. I can't accept this. You can, he said. And you will. Her throat tightened. Do you even hear yourself? This looks like charity, like pity. He stepped closer. No, it's gratitude, tears welled in her eyes. Why, because I spoke Arabic? Because I made you feel something? His voice broke just slightly. Because you taught me something no one else ever dared. That power means nothing if it silences truth. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Amara took the envelope, not as a favor, but as acknowledgement. Her mother's surgery was a success. The first thing Amara did after returning home was resign. She left the letter on his desk. Sir, thank you for everything, but I need to stand on my own feet again. Please understand. Respectfully, Amara Lewis. When Kareem found it, his heart sank. He tried to call, but she didn't answer. The mansion felt hollow without her presence. No calm footsteps in the hallway, no quiet hum of her voice in the mornings. For the first time in years, he felt humanly alone. The world moved on. The tabloids forgot, and Kareem al-Rashid's empire kept running, but emptier than before. One afternoon, during a conference for his humanitarian foundation, he paused mid-speech when a familiar voice carried from the back of the hall. You mispronounced that proverb, sir. The crowd chuckled lightly. Kareem froze. He knew that voice. He looked toward the doorway, and there she was. Amara. Dressed in a modest suit, a lanyard around her neck, Amara Lewis, translator, International Relations Division. She had built her own future. Kareem smiled faintly, regaining composure. I stand corrected, he said into the microphone. Perhaps our guest should be the one speaking. The audience laughed, unaware of the history written in their glances. Afterward, he found her outside in the courtyard. You came? He said quietly. I was invited, she replied. Your charity works with the UN now. I'm part of their translation team. He smiled with quiet pride. So you took my advice, she laughed softly. No, Kareem. I took my own. He looked at her. Really looked. Not as a maid, not as a worker, but as the woman who had changed his entire view of the world. They walked together through the garden. The same one where he once scolded her for speaking. Now silence between them felt sacred, not heavy. I've been thinking about what you said, Kareem said finally. That language can wound. And heal, she added gently. He nodded. You healed more than you know. Amara smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. Then maybe we both learned to listen. He stopped walking, facing her. Amara, I don't know what the world will think of me if I say this, but I no longer care. Her heart thudded. Kareem. He took a breath. You taught me that understanding someone is the highest form of respect, and I understand you more than I understand myself. She looked away, eyes glistening. You don't owe me anything. I don't, he said softly. But I choose you anyway. For a moment, everything stilled. The garden, the air, even time itself. Then Amara smiled. Small, real, unstoppable. You're still impossible. He grinned faintly. And you still speak like a poet. Epilogue. The language of the heart. Months later, during a charity conference in Cairo, reporters gathered as Kareem al-Rashid took the stage, not as a billionaire, but as a man redefined. Beside him stood Amara, now co-director of a language education program for underprivileged youth. He addressed the audience in English first, then shifted into Arabic, the same language that had once divided them. Words can separate us or unite us. Power can silence or it can uplift. Tonight I thank the woman who reminded me that dignity speaks in every tongue. He looked at Amara as the crowd applauded. She met his gaze, proud, steady, free. And though no one else understood, the words he whispered to her in Arabic were meant for her alone. You were the language my heart didn't know it needed. Amara smiled, replying in perfect Arabic. And you finally learned to listen. The applause rose around them like music. But they didn't need sound anymore, only the quiet understanding of two souls who had bridged every distance with truth.